Hello everyone, welcome to Winged Horse Designs. This week on YouTube I'm going to show you how to make this cute little box that holds a bottle of bubble bath. So it's held together with a piece of ribbon, and you just simply untie the ribbon, slide the lid off, and inside is some bubble bath. So let's switch the camera and get started on our project. So the materials that we're going to use to make our cute little box is we're going to use the Forever Lovely stamp set. And we're just going to use this one here that says wishing you a lovely day. I thought that fit well with the bubble bath. The tag is cut out with these Botanical tags dies, and I used this one here with the flower, and I've already pre-cut that. And if you cut your cardstock to 2 inches, you get a perfect tag topper on that. But you can see that there are also, here's one with little birds in it, one that kind of looks like a sun, and then you have these pieces up here that you can use if you are using them if you want to make a different type of, like some leaves, and if you want to make a different type of top. We're going to use the Perennial Essence papers. And these papers kind of remind me of Monet's Impressionistic era. So you have these flowers here that are very impressionistic on this paper. Beautiful flowers on here. And then on the back side you have more. So this one has like some leaves. Very, very Monet reminiscent. How he would have done his backgrounds. One that's kind of green. Some more flowers. This is the one I used on the sample, and then this is the one we're going to use today. So it's very, very similar. It just has a little bit lighter colors, a little more pinks and yellows in this one than there is in this one. And I will have the measurements over on my blog, so you don't need to write them down. But we're going to start with 2 pieces of gorgeous grape cardstock. The base measures 7 3/4 inches by 8 inches, and the top measures 8 inches by 8 1/4 inches. We'll score those in a moment. And then for your tag, you need a piece that's 2 inches by about 5 1/4 inches. I've already pre-cut this. And the reason for that is after we stamp it, then we'll notch it. And so I just left it a little bit longer, and then we can notch it based on where the greeting shows up on the tag. We're going to use the metallic edge ribbon. This one is the vanilla with gold edging. It also comes in whisper white with silver edging. And then a piece of white baker's twine that we're going to use to hold our tag on to our ribbon. And then we're going to bring in some of the Noble Peacock rhinestones. They come in blues, greens, pinks, purples, and another blue. This is more of a greenish blue. This is the Pretty Peacock. This is Blueberry Bushel. But I thought it might be nice to bring in some of those. We could use either the pinks or the purples. Let me bring in the Designer Series paper so you can see. But see, all of those go really nicely. Let's see, there we go. All of those go really nicely on this paper. So we'll probably use the purple. For our inks, we're going to do a lot of sponging on that tag. So we're going to use Blueberry Bushel, Pear Pizzazz, Highland Heather, and Gorgeous Grape. And I'm going to use the Stampin' Up! Sponge daubers that just kind of fit on your fingers, so you get to like play like your finger painting, like back in kindergarten. But any sponge would do. Makeup sponges work really well if you like a nice smooth finish. So let's start with our scoring. And there will be some 1/16 of an inch in here. I apologize for that, but that's to give our box a nice, good, snug fit. This one's a little bit looser, so in the blog I'll give you some alternative measurements that are easier for those of you who don't like rulers, but it is a little bit looser when it slides in and out. So the tag, I just have a little piece of baker's twine just to hold it together. So we'll set that aside and do our scoring. So on our first piece, this is the 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 by 8, so this is our top. So on the 8-inch side, we are going to score this at 1 5/16. So that would be come to 1 3/4 and one line over, just one little line. Be sure to use your scoring tool, which is the light gray, versus the cutting tool, which is dark gray. Every paper trimmer is different, so with mine it's the light gray. So we're just going to give that a good score, and then we're going to flip over to the 8 1/4 inch side. And on that one, we are going to score at 1 15/16, which is one mark before the 2-inch mark. Like I said, this is for a snug fit. We're going to score at 3 7/8. We're going to score at 5 13/16. So 15, 14, 13. See, even I count backwards. And 7 3/4 inches. That's our top. Now for our bottom, on our, this one measures 7 3/4 inches by 8 inches. On our 7 3/4 inch side, we're going to score that at 1 7/8. And then over on our 8-inch side, we're going to score at 1 7/8. Three 3/4, 5 5/8, and 7 1/2. Just going to come in and we're going to fold and burnish on all of these score lines. So now we need to cut away, and I'll put a template over on my blog. We need to cut away this tiny little rectangle here, so I'm going to cut straight up along that score line to the score line. And then I'm going to cut at an angle here so that this little flap here that holds our box together has a nice good fit. And I'm going to cut a sliver off on the other side as well. So let's go ahead and do those two pieces on both. And then we're going to cut up each of these score lines to the score line on both pieces. So before we put these together, we want to go ahead and do our designer series paper. So I'm going to bring in, I cut this 12 by 12 paper down to 6 by 12. And I'm going to come in and we're going to cut this designer series paper, and I'm going to kind of try and keep track of the pieces as they go so it just matches as it goes around the box. Get the scoring blade out of the way because we are going to cut this time. So we're going to cut our DSP at 1 3/4 inches by 6 inches. So it already measures 6 inches. So I'm going to cut 4 pieces at 1 3/4 inches. So there's one side. And I'm going to keep these going across. And then for our last one, we're going to make one more cut at 1 3/4 inches. and again at 1 3/4 inches. We're going to rotate it and cut again at 1 3/4 inches, and this is for the top of your box. So what you have left out of that 6 by 12 piece is just 2 small pieces here that you can use on another project, and they're a good size to use on another project. So I've kept these lined up in order so that we know which direction that we want them to go. And on our larger piece here, I like to lay mine down so that I know that I have my pattern going the direction I want it to go. So we're just simply going to glue these pieces on. I picked this Perennial Essence paper because I just thought that it worked well with Bubble Bath. It kind of gives you all those different colors coming together. So before we put our top on, we need to glue our box together. So we're going to turn it over and we're going to fold on the second score line and put some glue, or you could use tear and tape, any strong adhesive along our flap, and then we're going to fold on the first score line and it'll come over and match up perfectly. And then for our top, I like to remember where my back is. Okay. So here's my back. So I like to fold in, we're going to fold in the sides first. And then I like to fold in my back and then my front. Okay. So we're just going to put a little glue on this one and put it down. Put a little glue on this one, bring our back in, and now we're going to be careful and get some glue kind of over into the edge here. Let's just go on this side, it's easier. We're going to bring that piece down, and now we can put our piece on the top, now that we have all of our flaps in. It was really hard to decide which side to use on these papers because they're all so lovely. And there is the top. How easy was that? So let's put the base together. So the base we're going to fold in on the second score line. Put some adhesive on our flap, fold in from the first score line. And since we want to come in from the sides, I want to bring my sides in. And you'll understand this in just a moment. Put a little bit of glue on this one. Bring in our other side. And now it's time to bring in our ribbon. I wanted the ribbon to slide. Whoops, wrong piece. I want the ribbon to come up the sides, but I want to be able to anchor it. So I'm just going to take my ribbon and basically find where the center is, and I'm going to put my ribbon down along the side. And I'm going to put my adhesive on here, and I'm going to bring the back in, and then I'm going to put my adhesive on the outside flap and fold it back down. So what happens is the ribbon is held to the bottom of the box, and you just bring your bubble bath in, drop your bubble bath in, slide your top on, and then tie it and tie your bow. But let's work on that tag now. So I'm going to bring in the tag, and I'm going to do some sponging all around this tag. Here's our prototype. So I'm just going to take all my different inks and open them out. And then I'm going to start doing some sponging. I'm going to start with my Pear Pizzazz. This one I left it white behind the sentiment, but this time I think I want to do a little, just a super, super light of the Pear Pizzazz. And I start off the edge to get those little circle spots off. And I'm going to sponge around these leaves. It doesn't have to be perfect, I just don't want it too dark. Because we want it to be random. And then I'm going to come in with the Highland Heather, which is the lighter purple. And I'm going to work on my flower. And I'm just using a super light touch as I do this. And I'm going to come in over some of my Pear Pizzazz. And I'm just going to come in randomly in some other places. Attempting to keep that same impressionistic look that Monet had. And then because there's quite a bit of blue on our paper, I'm going to bring in just ever so light a touch. Well, let's bring in a little gorgeous grape, a little bit darker purple, and highlight some of our flower. Make that flower really stand out. Maybe just a bit more. And I'm going to come in ever so lightly, just barely touching it to the piece, and I'm going to bring in, well, let's stamp our image first and then bring our blue in around that. So I'm going to stamp the image in Gorgeous Grape, and I'm going to stamp at an angle kind of up toward my flower. I think it looks really nice, even with the green underneath it. I think it still stands out pretty nicely. So let's bring in a little bit of blue now, and that will really make this piece stand out. But I'm going to be really careful not to put in too much, and just come in randomly. Obviously, I am not the artist that Monet was, but we're just bringing in a little bit of it here. And I'm going to close these up so I don't get ink all over me. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to put in a little notch on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this piece as a sample. Typically what I would do is I would just come up and I would slice up to about where I want it and then come in from the sides. So I'm going to do that. I want it at about this far up. If you have, I do have the punch, you could do it with the punch too. I just find it just as easy to just go ahead and cut in with my scissors. So I'm going to take some baker's twine, I don't know, about 8 inches or so, and I'm going to feed it through where the leaf attaches to the flower and the bottom petal of the flower. So basically where there's a wider piece there. And I'm just going to feed that through, and then I'm just going to tie a knot at the top because I just want it to dangle. didn't want to attach it permanently to the box. I just wanted to dangle it. It's always easier to tie these off camera than on camera, of course. But I just want it to dangle a little bit. So I wanted to bring it up, and I probably want my knot a little bit closer. And then I'm going to snip it real close to that knot. So then as we get ready to tie this, we just simply loop it through our ribbon and let it hang. And I'm going to get this knot as close to the ribbon as I can, and let's see if I can tie a bow on camera. So I'm just simply going to tie my bow across the top. And then you can snip your tails off to whatever size that you want. But there you have this cute little box that holds a bubble bath. So what woman wouldn't love some time to relax in a nice warm bubble bath? And it has this nice impressionistic pattern around it. So I hope you enjoyed today's project. I will see you next week with something new. Happy trails, everyone.